You're tuned in to the Bleav in Arizona podcast.
Hello, Bear Down Believers, and welcome into the show. I'm your host, Matt Reynoldsson. This morning, we're going to be talking a little bit about Arizona's 117-54 win over Eastern New Mexico in the first men's basketball exhibition. We'll also discuss football in a rough spot right now, a 3-4 record, and a rash of injuries that really demand an explanation from the entire Arizona coaching staff and the Arizona program. We'll take a look at the path ahead, take a quick look about West Virginia coming into Tucson this weekend and everything going on with football. But we're leading the show with basketball. Before we get to that, I want to remind you to please like and subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on my YouTube page at Matt_Reynoldsson. Also want to give a shout out to one of the sponsors of this show, Melon Hats. Look at this puppy. Perfect with just anything you want to wear for Arizona. This is a red one, beautiful part of the outfit. You know, it's something you can dress up, dress down, really the most important part of the outfit. And the best part about these hats is they keep their shape, they keep their structural integrity, perfect to wear to the gym, wear golfing, wear just out and about. You know, I see melon hats up here in the valley quite a bit. So that's certainly a staple of your outfit. And if you want to get one, if you want to check them out, go check them out at melin.com. That's Melon Hats, one of our sponsors here on the Bleav in Arizona podcast. All right. Arizona men's basketball, our first taste of the Wildcats 2024-25 team. And I got to say, I like what I saw. The Cats in that exhibition were efficient, strong defensively, and I think one of the biggest takeaways for me in that game was the incredible performance of the front court in this game. Let's just go through some of these stats because they were impressive from Arizona's front court. Let's just start off with the two starters in Tobe Awaka at the 5 and Trey Townsend at the 4 in this game. The two were a combined 13 for 17 in this game for a grand total of 19 rebounds. And then coming off the bench, Henry Visar, also an incredible game in his first action since the 2022-23 season after missing all of last season because of an early season injury. He ended up redshirting last year, kind of buried on the bench behind that post depth with Mo Krivas and Umar Ballo. Visar showed up very well in this game. 8 of 9 from the field, also pitching in, 4 rebounds in and of himself. So a good performance from him, just a really good performance from Arizona's front court in this game. Granted, against a very overmatched size-wise Eastern New Mexico team, but that's what you were expecting to see in an exhibition like this, especially with Arizona bringing back the talent they brought back. But they're only bringing back one starter to this team, which is crazy to think about because it seems like so much of the core of this roster is back together for this squad. But look at the starting lineup from last year. Kylan Boswell, he's now at Illinois. Caleb Love is still here, and he was named a preseason first-team AP All-American earlier on Monday. At the 3, though, you have Pelle Larsson, now in the NBA. Keyshawn Johnson at the 4, now in the NBA. And Umar Ballo transferred to Indiana for a hefty bag. He'll always be a Wildcat. He'll always back the A. I know we love Umar down here in Tucson, but you know he's got a chance to make some money and make a good impact on Big Ten basketball out there in Indiana. So I think everybody here wishes him the best of luck. But I will say with Ballo, I think they were a little bit too reliant on the double-double machine last year. They were a little bit too reliant on just one guy to make everything happen in the post. And I think that's how you paint yourself into a bit of a corner come March. You know, when you have a dominant post player like that and you need him to be everything for your offense, everything for your team. I think one thing we saw tonight, if you're an Arizona basketball fan, one thing we saw last night in the game against Eastern New Mexico is this is a team that can beat you in multiple ways from the post standpoint. We saw Trey Townsend step out and hit 4 threes in this game. You know, he finished with 20 points to lead the team, 24 points to lead the team. He had 20 of those points in the first half, only played 22 minutes in this contest. And he's a guy that last year averaged 0.4 threes per game. Well, he had 4 in this game and was very impressive really all the way throughout. Townsend will start at the 4 for this team, but can stretch out and play a 3 in some of those bigger lineups. You know, is a little bit small for your traditional 4 in the Big 12, but boy, does he play big, and boy, does he play with some touch around the rim, finesse, length. it really looks like the reigning Horizon League Player of the Year, the transfer from Oakland, is going to be a staple in this Arizona lineup. He showed it early, 2 threes in the first 3 minutes of this game, hit his first couple from outside. And this is what Tommy Lloyd wants to bring into the program. This is what makes Arizona such an attractive transfer destination. We saw it last year with Keyshawn, who was kind of just a defensive guy, little things guy for San Diego State a couple years ago on that run all the way to the NCAA title game. When he came to Arizona, he was unlocked from a three-point standpoint, unlocked from an offensive standpoint. And that's the system Lloyd runs that gives these guys the flexibility to succeed on the offensive end and develop their game and play some of that free-flowing style that really is paramount in developing as an NBA player. And it's why the Wildcats have so many alums in the NBA. Even a couple fringe talent guys like Pelle Larsson and Keyshawn Johnson have stuck on rosters for the Miami Heat. And that looks to be, a good possibility to take it all the way to opening day this week, which is great for those guys and speaks a lot more to the development and the ability to lock in on their own skill sets that they were able to develop in their final years at Arizona. So impressive NBA pipeline now growing for Tommy Lloyd. And I think that's probably going to come true for Trey Townsend a little bit as well, because he came to Arizona because he was an NBA tweener. He's a guy that, only had one walk-on offer out of high school, ended up going to Oakland and, showing out, and then eventually leading the Grizzlies to an upset win over Kentucky in the NCAA tournament. Well, this is what the transfer portal was built for. He gave Oakland his time, and now he wants to see if he can just take his game to the next level and prepare himself for a possible shot at the NBA. If it looks anything like tonight, looks anything like last night's game, 24 points on 8 of 11 shooting, Trey Townsend's going to have one heck of a first year in Tucson. So they look built from a front court standpoint to withstand anything. And granted, they had that efficient of a front court game. I want to look up this stat just to make sure 100% what the exact stat was. Arizona's top 3 forward centers in the exhibition game, 21 of 26 shooting, 57 points, 22 rebounds, each in about 20 minutes of this game. Arizona got 18 players in this ball game. Impressive to get all those guys cycled through exactly what you want in an exhibition. But those were the top 3 forward centers in this game, and that's missing your likely starting 5 in Mo Krivas. Krivas went through pregame warmups. He's still working his way back from an ankle injury, went through pregame warmups in an individual sense after the team left the floor. Tommy Lloyd said after the game that he wouldn't be ready to play right now, but he's working his way back. They're going to be careful with him. Arizona obviously has another exhibition game next Monday, but we could see Krivas back on the floor sooner than later, but they're in no rush to get him back because they're building some incredible depth with this roster right now. I mean, we saw that in a really impressive performance offensively and defensively against Eastern New Mexico. Look, the first half looked about like how I thought it was going to look. A slow start for Eastern New Mexico. Arizona gets out, comfortable lead. There's a couple runs in there by Eastern New Mexico. It makes it kind of interesting. But overall, just the talent is overwhelming. We saw it early on in the season last year. But one thing that strikes me about watching these exhibitions and taking things away from games against Division II opponents like this, one thing that really strikes me in these games is I think we all as media members come away and say, well, this is the best team Tommy Lloyd's put together. And it feels like we say that year after year after year after year. And so, and that's not an overarching criticism of the end results. March becomes random at that point. But I think it's just a testament to Tommy Lloyd knows exactly how he wants to build this program, the exact type of guys he wants to bring in, and the exact type of things he wants to develop within individual players and within a system in these exhibition games. Look, make no mistake, Arizona is going to have no trouble next week with their exhibition game. They're going to have no trouble against Canisius in the opener. They're going to have no trouble against Old Dominion in their first Saturday game on November 8th. This is a team that's going to run away from some people, but it's all about getting ready for those big games in non-conference. You have Wisconsin on the road on November 15th. The following Friday night, Duke and Cooper Flag come in here on Friday, November 22nd. You have the battle for Atlantis in the Bahamas. That's always going to be a tough out tough stacked field. Right now, I like Arizona's chances to win that tournament. And then on December 15th, of course, you have the grudge match with UCLA before getting into Big 12 play on December 30th. And then that's the rest of your regular season in the grueling conference, no doubt, in my mind, best conference in college basketball. But I think one thing that was proven to me in the exhibition game, the exhibition win over ENMU, was that Caleb Love had been named a first-team preseason All-American earlier on in the day. And he was pretty much a non-factor in the game, and it didn't matter at all. We could not have said that at any point last year. Caleb Love was the engine that made this team go. He was the only one who could really step up and make shots, the only one who sometimes could force the issue on offense. Last night I saw probably several guys that had an opportunity to do that, and several guys that were really forward thinking with this offensive game plan, guys that attacked the rim, they spaced well, they got out in transition, they were ferocious defensively. And before we wrap up the basketball segment, I want to talk about this. How about Jaden Bradley? Looking like an absolute bona fide starting point guard for the Arizona Wildcats. He is no doubt PG1 in this team, and he looks super impressive. He was a plus 50 plus minus on the night. I mean, he was an absolute monster. And the stat line was somewhat modest for Bradley. 8 points on 1 of 4 shooting, 0 of 2 from the outside, 6 of 8 from the charity stripe. He had 4 rebounds and 4 assists and 1 turnover and 1 block and 4 steals in those 20 minutes. I mean, not exactly an eye-popping stat line, but the plus 50 was a real testament to what he was when he was on the floor, especially leading the transition break. He found Anthony Dell'Orzo for a couple transition threes, found Trey Townsend for 1 in the first half, and it just looked so smooth with the Alabama transfer, the former Alabama transfer in his second year in the Arizona program. Number 0 running the offense looked so darn smooth. And the fact that it didn't need to go to a black hole Caleb Love game, didn't need to go to anything forcing the issue to formerly number 2, now number 1, Caleb Love, and giving him an opportunity to sort of ease his way into the game, spot up for shots, not shoot so much off the dribble, find his game, find his rhythm, unlocks the ability for Caleb Love to be living up to that potential of a first-team All-American. I think it starts with Jaden Bradley at the point. We saw Conrad Martinez get some good minutes as backup point guard on Monday night. We'll see if that stays, or we'll see if Caleb Love becomes the backup point guard for this team. That rotation will shrink throughout the non-conference and as we move in towards Big 12 season. But I think we saw a lot of good things with the backcourt for Arizona. KJ Lewis looks to be just as athletic. The entire backcourt looks like they got haircuts, so the hair looks pretty sharp going on in the season. I didn't really expect to see Caleb Love without dreads. That looks gonna take some getting used to, certainly for Caleb Love. But this is a team this is a backcourt that has a lot of confidence and a lot of experience coming back. And when you look at the guys they bring in off the bench, between Anthony Dell'Orzo and Carter Bryant at that stretch 3-4 position, the superstar, McDonald's All-American 5-star freshman, they've got some dudes that they can bring in all over the floor. The 3 transfers look to be fitting in super well. You got the sniper off the bench in Dell'Orzo, and you've got 18 guys into this game. I think that's the most important thing. You got 18 guys into this game, got a comfortable 60-point win, 63-point win at home against Eastern New Mexico. In a game that was never in doubt, got to develop a lot of players, and you got to prove that you're ready for the Big 12 in post-play, from a post-play standpoint and a post-depth standpoint. So super impressive performance by Arizona Monday night. I feel good about things coming off of that. Don't want to take too much from a win over a Division II team, but as other college basketball teams have shown us in years past, these exhibitions are not always a cakewalk. Louisville in past years, although they look really good on Monday night and kind of exercising some of those demons from years past. But, these exhibitions are not always a cakewalk. And Arizona made it look very easy. 117 points on the board, a really efficient defensive performance once again. And here's head coach Tommy Lloyd after the game.
All in all, I think everybody's obviously going to feel pretty good. There was some good numbers, a good team effort in a lot of areas, but we got incredibly high standards. So, we need to have a great week of preparation, and we have one of the best D2 teams in the country coming in here, on next Monday, and so we're going to have to get better to prepare for that, and so it's going to be a good week of practice for us, and we got to kind of maybe start taking kind of the next steps in our install. The things we want to get in before the real games hit. So, hey, today was great. We'll evaluate it, but we're on to the next. If I'm trying to control them as a player before they've had an opportunity to really show what they can do, am I going to get the authentic version of that player? I want the authentic version of that player, and then once I see that, I want to help them maybe do the things that could be effective. So, it's probably happened naturally, but I would say we still have some work to do in that area, but I'll continue to let it evolve a little bit. We have guys that would be starting in a number of programs, and, that's important, and that's how you build a great program. You have depth, and you have options, and, we have guys that know you come to Arizona that you're probably going to have to make some sacrifices on some personal things, some personal accolades, but there'll be lots of gains in other areas. So we have a culture where that's normal, and we reward that, and we really value those guys. And I don't know exactly who's going to start, who's not going to start as of today. We started what we did today, but we also have another player coming back that's pretty good. So that might shake things up a little bit, or maybe not. We'll see. So, but all in all, I love the options we have with this roster. And I think they're all going to contribute to winning.
All right, Wildcat fans are feeling too good here on the Bleav in Arizona podcast. So time to pour some cold water on that a little bit. Not really, but we got to talk about football because it is the middle of football season. Arizona's 3-4, and the tensions are as high as they have ever been at the stadium over there. This has not been going well for a first-year coaching staff, and I think a big part of that, and a big part of the legitimate criticism with this coaching staff, is a lack of transparency around injuries. Well, we saw on Monday maybe a little bit more transparency than usual for head coach Brent Brennan, seeming to listen to some of the critics when it comes to the lack of transparency for injuries. And look, before I dig too hard into these guys, I do want to say that I understand 100% where the coaches are coming from in not disclosing injury information. Your number one thing is to be a steward for these players, to protect their interests, to protect their health, to not give opponents, ammo to come after these guys and go after some of their injuries. And, oh, this guy has a bum knee, this guy has a bum ankle, I'm going to expose that. You're putting your guys in a really precarious position sometimes if you do that. But on the flip side of this, and from the side that I most identify with, it's football. These guys are going to have to play through injuries. And if you are, as Brent Brennan said on Saturday after the loss, if you are constantly having a rotating door of guys that are missing practice time in and time out, and then things don't look coordinated on Saturday, look, that's not an excuse. That's a reason. So if it's a reason, then tell us through the process. I don't need a detailed injury report every week of which guys are nicked up, limited in practice, full participant in practice. This isn't the NFL, but a little more injury transparency for what's going on so we can figure out, okay, what is Arizona doing on the offensive line or at wide receiver, or what are the solutions? I think the fans deserve that, and I think the fans deserve that transparency to see what the injury situation is with this Arizona football team. Well, at the 7-game mark of this season, it's as bad as it's ever been as far as injuries. Jacob Manu and Rhino Tapatotai are out for the season. Jacob Manu, obviously the weird injury in that game, the reigning all Pac-12 first-team linebacker, he went down with an injury on a weird celebration play, lower body injury. He'll miss the rest of the season. Rhino, redshirt freshman left tackle, he'll miss the rest of the season as well. Didn't specify the injuries on those. Gunnar Maldonado will have a surgical procedure, so it's unclear if he'll miss the rest of the season, but Arizona's starting safety certainly out for an extended period of time still. So frustrating there, because that means you're down 3 of your captains in Manu, Traden Stukes, and Gunnar Maldonado. That's a really tough situation to be in at this juncture as a team. And Arizona has got to figure out, from a strength and conditioning standpoint, where these injuries are coming from. Look, what I've seen on the field so far this year, yes, there have been game plan issues. Yes, there have been coaching issues. But what you see when you see so many guys go down, and the first few games, look, you can probably attribute it to heat. I think we tend to do that, especially in Tucson, attributing it to the high heat, the high temperatures. You got to get enough water, cramps here and there, and things like that. But there were a lot of soft tissue injuries in week one, and that's concerning. These guys don't look like they are conditioned and ready for the 60-minute fight. Or even if they are conditioned and ready, they don't necessarily look like they're recovered from the week before. Cards on the table. I did wrong by you because I excused Arizona resting half their starters for the NAU game as punting, as treating it like a preseason game. Well, in the reality of it is all of those injuries were legitimate. And that's super concerning. Coming off your first game of the season against a team like New Mexico, who you put 61 points up on, and you come out of it with that many injuries. And it's not like guys went down during the game. You came out of it with that many injuries that you discovered essentially on Sunday morning. What does that say about where the guys were conditioned in the offseason? And look, this was not a strange thing, or this was not a foreign thing in spring and fall camp as well. Guys were nicked up all spring ball. The offensive line barely had a week together in fall camp because guys were in and out of the lineup. Wide receivers were missing time. Defensive backs were missing time. Linebackers were missing time. Guys going down again and again and again. And I know there weren't a lot of season-ending injuries in fall camp, but that's because this coaching staff had the wherewithal at that point to scale it back and say, look, we need to be healthy going into the season. Well, there's a difference between healthy and hardened. And Arizona was not hardened going into this season. The rash of injuries against New Mexico was the first red flag in that. And then NAU, kind of beat them up in the trenches a little bit. They weren't super healthy going into K-State. And luckily, after the K-State game, after that wake-up call loss in Manhattan, they had 2 weeks to get a little bit more healthy. That bye week came weirdly at the perfect time because they were injured up 3 weeks into the season. That bye week came at the perfect time. Arizona had a couple weeks to get healthy, get back right, get their bodies recovered, everything like that. And then they went out and played their best game of the season in a 23-10 win at Utah. An impressive wire-to-wire performance in Salt Lake City, which is a tough place to play. I don't care what you think about Utah this year. That's a tough place to play and a tough place to win, especially because that team at the time was a top 10 squad in the country. Arizona played really well, but it was because Arizona had 2 weeks to heal up and prepare. Texas Tech, more injuries. Then BYU, more and more and more injuries. And then coming off this game, 2 more season-ending injuries. And you start to ask, what in the world are the recovery processes? Are these guys not getting their game preparation right? Are these guys not getting their body right going into these games? What is happening over at Arizona Stadium to where these guys are so susceptible to both soft tissue injuries and major injuries? I know somebody made the point to me on Twitter earlier on this week that part of it could be the field turf. Yeah, but a lot of teams play on field turf. And Arizona played on field turf last year and didn't have anywhere near this terrible streak of injuries. And while I would prefer Arizona to have natural grass, especially because I trust the sciences department at the U of A and what would be a landscaping department there to create a state-of-the-art grass field and nurture it all year long in that Tucson sunshine, while I would prefer a grass field there, I can't blame the grass field for this rash of injuries when it didn't occur last year on the exact same stadium field. So it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see. And these coaches need to take a hard look at nutrition, hydration, strength and conditioning, recovery. It's not just, hey, how much can you bench? It's how are you taking care of your body on a weekly basis? And how are you getting up for game day? Look, there's no excuse for, and it could have been a freak thing. I don't know. I didn't see it, but there's no excuse for a routine pregame drill. One of your best defensive linemen, and Isaiah Johnson, getting injured and having to be helped off the field in pregame warmups. What's the preparation for these games like? Because a lot of these injuries are happening in the first half of these games. It's not just that guys wear down. It's that guys are brittle from the start. And I wonder what is leading into that. I don't know. I don't have a window into what the nutrition program is. We'd like to have a window into what the strength and conditioning program is, but there are curtains up around the weight room at Arizona Stadium. It's concerning at this point. The alarm bells have been sounded. And Arizona needs to take a hard look during the season if it can, because there's a bye week coming up not too long from now, just 2 weeks from now. During the season, if it can, take a look at strength and conditioning, but certainly in the offseason, there probably needs to be an overhaul of the strength and conditioning program, or maybe even the strength and conditioning staff, because you can't have this many guys suffering season-ending injuries. It's really derailed the season for Arizona. Now the goal is to make a bowl game. The new goal, the new focus is to get out of here, make a bowl game, develop some guys, and get things turned around for 2025. Because right now, things are in danger of going off the rails. And if more guys get hurt, that's concerning. But if their replacements step up and guys start to play well, build some confidence, the coaching staff starts to mesh together and figure things out, the defensive staff dials in and builds a good veteran defense coming into next season, and the offensive staff starts to figure things out. Still think there need to be some offensive coaching staff changes, but some of the offensive players start to figure things out and gain some momentum so a new offensive coordinator can come in here and really hit the ground running in the offseason. I think those are the best case scenarios for Arizona football the rest of the season. This is a team that could still go 7-5. It's certainly not out of the realm of possibility, because you should be favored at home against a 3-4 West Virginia team. You go on the road to a UCF team that's currently 3-4. You have a bye week. You're back at home against probably the worst team in the Big 12 in Houston. And then on the road again at TCU, a team that is talented but has been super inconsistent. And then back home for the Territorial Cup game on Thanksgiving weekend against ASU, in which anything can happen, even though ASU looks pretty good right now. There's a realistic possibility Arizona finishes the season 4-1. It's not going to be better than that. I think it's probably more likely that it's a 3-2 finish. But the bowl game needs to be the goal. The bowl game needs to be the focus. And Arizona cannot afford any more season-ending injuries if it wants to get there. And if it wants to build this program long-term, it needs a hard look at what the strength and conditioning program is, because the injuries have been a huge issue, and you need to keep player health and safety in mind. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on the basketball game, as Arizona basketball's getting started. Might be overreacting a little bit, maybe a little too positive to an exhibition game, but either way, we'd love to talk about it. Let me know in the comments here on YouTube, and please don't forget to go subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you get your, not Google Play, tune in wherever you get your podcasts. And then, of course, this YouTube video at Matt_Reynoldson. Please throw me a subscription there. Would love to hear your comments below. Fun start to the exhibition season for Arizona basketball. One more next Monday before the season opener the following Monday against Canisius. Should be a fun ride, especially going into a loaded Big 12 slate this year. Super excited for Arizona basketball. Football, though, remains on the brain. We'll talk to a West Virginia insider coming up later this week, and we'll make our picks on the weekend in college football, especially headed into a big pivotal game for the Arizona Wildcats on Saturday. 4 p.m. kickoff at Arizona Stadium against West Virginia. That'll be televised on FS1. So much more to come this week, but until then, I hope you have a great week. Thanks so much for joining me, and bear down.